Hey guys, tonight we stand on a hill in central Gaul, overlooking a scene of unimaginable slaughter. The air, thick with the iron-sweet stench of blood and the greasy smoke of burning siege towers, hangs heavy in the autumn chill. Below you, in the valley, two immense concentric rings of earth and wood, the pride of Roman engineering, are shattered. The ditches run red, not with rainwater, but with the lifeblood of 8 legions. You see broken standards, the golden eagles of the Republic, snapped from their poles and ground into the mud beneath the hobnailed boots of screaming painted warriors. This is the killing ground. This is Alesia. And everything you know about history ends here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Comment where you're watching from and what time at island. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's step into the world that could have been. You smell it first. Long before your eyes can make sense of the carnage, the smell hits you. It's a primal, visceral assault on the senses. It's the smell of a nation's worth of men dying in a single desperate day. You are standing with a knot of Gallic chieftains, their expensive, brightly coloured cloaks now spattered with mud and gore. Their faces, a mixture of ecstatic disbelief and exhausted horror, are illuminated by the flickering torchlight. They speak in hushed, urgent tones, their words sharp and guttural in the sudden, ringing silence that follows a battle. They are all looking at one thing, a prize beyond all reckoning, laid out on a makeshift bier of captured Roman shields. It is a man, or what's left of him. Even in death, stripped of his general's cloak, you can see the sheer, unyielding force of his will etched into his features. A high, receding hairline, a patrician's sharp nose, and a mouth set in a permanent line of grim determination. His armour is of the finest quality, the gilded breastplate dented and pierced in a dozen places. A giant of a man, his red hair braided with captured Roman finger bones, nudges the body with his foot. He is Commius, king of the Atrebates, once a Roman ally, now their butcher. He spits. But another man, leaner, with eyes that burn with a cold, terrifying fire, steps forward and lays a hand on Commius's shoulder. He is younger than the others, but they all fall silent at his presence. He kneels, his own fine chainmail clicking softly. He studies the dead man's face, his expression unreadable. Then he looks up, and his voice, though quiet, cuts through the night. It is him, Vercingetorix says, Gaius Julius Caesar. The name hangs in the air, a spell of immense power now broken. Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, the butcher of the Belgae, the man who was to be king of Rome, dead. Here, in the mud of Alesia, at the very moment of his ultimate triumph. In our world, Alesia was Caesar's masterpiece, a siege of unparalleled genius where he trapped Vercingetorix's grand army and, with his back to the wall, defeated a massive Gallic relief force. It was the victory that cemented his legend, delivered Gaul to Rome, and paved his road to absolute power. But not in this world. Here, the gods of the sky, Tyrannus and Jupiter, chose a different outcome. For 3 days, as the Gallic relief army gathered, the heavens opened. A relentless, torrential downpour turned the fields of Alesia into a liquid, sucking mire. The meticulously engineered Roman fortifications, their pits and sharpened stakes, became flooded trenches of mud. The ground, Caesar's greatest ally in building his walls, became his most treacherous foe. When the combined Gallic assault finally came, it was not the clean, disciplined affair of our history. It was a chaotic, desperate, mud-drenched brawl. Vercingetorix, his starving army within the fortress driven to a final, berserker rage, threw themselves at the inner wall. Simultaneously, the relief force, a churning sea of over 200,000 warriors, crashed against the outer defences. A section of the contravallation, its foundations weakened by the ceaseless rain, simply collapsed into a river of slurry, opening a breach. And Caesar, true to his nature, did not hesitate. He did what he always did. He led from the front. Gathering his elite Germanic cavalry, he plunged into the gap, a flash of scarlet and gold in the grey, rainy gloom, aiming to personally plug the hole in his lines. It was the kind of audacious, high-stakes gamble that had won him a dozen battles. But the mud had no regard for audacity. His warhorse, a magnificent Spanish stallion, lost its footing in the churned earth and went down with a scream. For a heart-stopping moment, the proconsul of Rome was just a man on his knees, struggling in the mire, and the tide of Gauls, their eyes wide with religious fervour, and the promise of vengeance washed over him. They did not take him alive. The rage was too deep, the hatred too personal. He was swarmed, hacked at, and torn apart. The sight of Caesar's head, hoisted onto the tip of a long Gallic spear, did what no army could. it broke the will of Rome. His second-in-command, Titus Labienus, a brilliant general in his own right, saw it from the ramparts. He saw the linchpin of their entire world, the divine spark of their cause, extinguished. The legendary discipline of the 10th Legion evaporated. The retreat was not a retreat, it was a rout. A panicked, stumbling flight back towards the Alps, harried every step of the way by the victorious Gauls. Of the 8 legions present, less than 2 would make it back to Roman territory, and they were a shadow, a ghost of an army, their spirit shattered beyond repair. You look now at Vercingetorix. He stands over the body of his fallen nemesis, and you see the ethical tension of this new world etched on his face. This is not a clean victory. The valley is a butcher's yard, filled with the corpses of tens of thousands of his own people alongside the Romans. He starved his own warriors to the brink of cannibalism for this. He sacrificed everything. This liberation, this glorious moment of freedom, was purchased with a horror so profound it will scar the Gallic soul for 1,000 years. He has saved his people by embracing a brutality that mirrors Rome's own. He has stared into the abyss of Roman conquest, and, to defeat it, he has had to become a monster of equal measure. The unexpected twist is not simply that Rome lost a battle, it is that Rome has lost its future. Caesar was more than a general. He was a political movement, a financial powerhouse, and a demigod to his men. Without him, his entire faction in the Senate collapses. His veterans, loyal to him personally, and not to the abstract republic, have no master to pay them. The vast wealth of Gaul, which in our timeline funded his rise to power, will now be used to forge an entirely different destiny. The news spreads on the wind. From the Rhine to the Atlantic, the bonfires are lit on every hill fort. Vercingetorix, the young chieftain of the Arverni, has done the impossible. He has not merely defeated a Roman army, he has decapitated the Roman eagle itself. The tribes of Gaul, so recently at each other's throats, are now united in a single, earth-shaking realization: they are free. But as you stand there, on the edge of this new, uncertain dawn, you realize something profound. The Roman roads will not be built. The Latin language will not supplant the Celtic tongues. The Roman law that forms the bedrock of Western civilization will never cross the Alps. An entire world, the one you know, died here today with one man in the mud. And in its place, something far older, wilder, and more mysterious is about to be born. The age of iron and legions is over. The age of blood and magic is about to begin. The euphoria of victory is a fleeting drug. 6 moons have passed since the slaughter at Alesia, and the brutal winter that followed has scoured the land, leaving behind a stark and unsettling quiet. You are in a forest, deep in the lands of the Carnutes, a place the Romans feared, a place they called the heart of Gaul. The air is cold, and carries the scent of damp earth and moss. Above you, the ancient oaks, older than any memory of man, form a dense canopy that blots out the sky. This is not a forest, this is a cathedral, a Nemeton, the most sacred ground in this new, liberated world. You are watching the birth of a nation, and it looks nothing like you would expect. There is no Senate house, no forum, no marble columns. There is only this clearing, a ring of moss-covered standing stones, and the men gathered within it. They are the same chieftains you saw at Alesia, the warlords who broke the legions. Vercingetorix stands at the centre, no longer the blood-soaked berserker, but a politician, his face etched with weariness. The unity forged in the heat of battle is already cracking. You hear the angry words of Commius, his voice booming through the clearing. He wants to march on the lands of the Ubii, to punish them for providing cavalry to Caesar. Others want to settle old scores with rival tribes. They are reverting to their nature. Proud, fractious, violent men. They bled for their freedom, and to them, freedom means the right to raid, to feud, to live and die by the sword, as their ancestors did. They see Vercingetorix not as a king, but as a temporary war leader whose purpose is now fulfilled. Vercingetorix argues for a continued alliance, a professional army to guard the Alpine passes and the Rhine frontier. He speaks of a shared treasury, of coordinated defences. He is using the logic of Rome, the logic of statecraft, and it is failing. These men do not respond to logic. They respond to power, to glory, and to the gods. And then they appear. Moving out from the shadows of the ancient trees, a silent procession of figures in white robes. Their heads are cowled, their faces unseen save for the glint of their eyes in the gloom. They are the Druids. They move with an unnerving, preternatural calm, a stark contrast to the boisterous energy of the warriors. At their head is a man whose face is finally revealed as he steps into the center of the clearing. He is ancient, his skin like stretched parchment over a skull, but his eyes are intensely alive. This is not a king. This is something more. This is the Gutuator, the arch-druid of the Carnutes, the spiritual spine of the Gallic people. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. When he speaks, the air itself seems to grow still. He looks not at Vercingetorix, but at the assembled chieftains. He speaks of the cycles of the world, of the sacred oaths sworn by their ancestors. He reminds them that their victory was not won by swords alone, but by the favour of the gods, a favour channeled through the rites and sacrifices that only the Druids can perform. This is the moment. This is the foundation of the new world. What the Gutuator proposes is not an empire. The very idea is antithetical to the Celtic spirit. It is not a republic, for that is a Roman folly. He calls it the Concordat, a sacred pact. It is a structure built on 3 pillars, and you see it solidifying before your eyes. First, the pillar of the sword. Vercingetorix is to be acclaimed Pentern, the head chieftain, the supreme commander of the united war hosts of Gaul. His authority is absolute, but only in matters of war and the defence of the frontiers. He is the nation's shield, not its ruler. Second, the pillar of the coin. The oppida, the great hill forts that dot the landscape, are to become the hubs of trade. The riverways are to be the arteries. But tolls, taxes, and tributes are not to be paid to any king. They are to be rendered as offerings at the great Nemeter, the sacred groves, and administered by the Druidic orders. They will fund the training of new initiates, the maintenance of the holy sites, and the vast stores of grain and supplies needed to support the war host. The economy becomes an extension of the temple. Third, and most important, is the pillar of judgment. All disputes between tribes, all blood feuds, all arguments over land and inheritance will no longer be settled by the spear. They will be brought before a council of Druids. Their word is law, not a written law, a dead thing on a scroll, but the living law of tradition, interpreted by the only men who spend 20 years memorizing the sacred verses that govern every aspect of life. Here is the ethical tension, laid bare. To secure their freedom from Roman tyranny, the Gallic peoples must surrender their personal and tribal autonomy to a new power, the absolute, unquestionable authority of the priesthood. They are trading the legionary's sword for the Druid's sickle. A chieftain from the east, a hot-headed warrior named Cedulus, spits on the ground. I will not be judged by priests. My sword is my law. The Gutuator does not flinch. He simply raises a hand, his long, bony fingers pointing at Cedulus. His voice is a cold whisper that chills you to the bone. You have spoken against the will of the gods. You have broken the harmony. From this moment you are cast out. No man shall share his fire with you. No woman shall lie with you. No child shall call your name. When you die, your spirit will not pass to the other world, but will be condemned to wander in the cold earth. Forgotten. You are nothing. The effect is instantaneous and terrifying. The warriors standing near Cedulus take a step back, their faces a mask of fear. His own retainers look at him not with loyalty, but with horror. He is no longer their chieftain. He is a ghost, a walking corpse. He has been subjected to the interdictio, the ultimate sanction. In a society built on kinship and community, it is a fate worse than death. this is the unexpected twist. Vercingetorix, the great hero, the liberator, is a secondary power. He has won the greatest military victory in Celtic history, yet he is now the servant of a system he did not create. The true power does not reside in the forts, but in the groves. It is a quiet, intellectual, spiritual power that can unmake a man with a word. This Gallic Concordat is not a kingdom or an empire. It is a theocracy, a distributed, decentralized theocracy that binds dozens of tribes not with chains, but with faith and fear. You realize you are witnessing the creation of an unwritten empire. It has no single capital, no codified laws, no imperial bureaucracy in the Roman sense. Its administration is the network of Druids. Its highways are the rivers and the sacred paths between the Nemeta, and its constitution is an epic poem that lives only in the memory of the initiated. It is strong, resilient, and deeply conservative. It is designed to preserve the Celtic way of life, to freeze it, to protect it from the contamination of outside ideas. It has saved Gaul from Rome, but in doing so, it has locked it into a path of tradition, not progress. A world where the priest, not the engineer or the philosopher, holds the keys to the future. A generation has passed. The world has settled into its new shape. You are not in Gaul this time, but on the windswept western coast of Hibernia, Ireland. The year is roughly 15 BCE, a date that means nothing here. The calendar is not Julian. It is a complex, elegant system of lunar and solar cycles, marked by the great festivals of Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lugnasad. You stand on a cliff, the salt spray misting your face, looking out at a churning grey sea. Below you, a small stone-walled monastery clings to the rock, a beacon of learning in a world that never knew the light of Christ. This is not a monastery in the Christian sense. There are no bells calling monks to prayer for a singular, transcendent God. This is a Druidic core, a college of high learning. Here the brightest minds of the Concordat and the unconquered Celtic lands of Britannia and Hibernia come to complete the final years of their 2-decade-long training. The silence is profound, broken only by the cry of gulls and the rhythmic chant of voices from within the stone clockens. They are not praying, they are memorizing. You step inside one of the stone beehive huts. The air is thick with the smoke of a peat fire and the scent of drying herbs. A dozen young men, their faces earnest and intelligent, sit in a circle around an elder druid. He is reciting the Triads of the Isles, ancient mnemonic verses that contain the distilled wisdom of their people. They encompass law, medicine, cosmology, history, and philosophy. In our world, the coming of Christianity, with its written scripture and its Greco-Roman intellectual heritage, stamped out the native beliefs of Europe. Druidism, persecuted into oblivion by the Romans, survived only as a ghost, a caricature in folk tales. Here, it has had 70 years to evolve, to systematize, to deepen, freed from the immediate threat of Roman annihilation and elevated to the supreme administrative power of the Gallic Concordat. It has blossomed into something far more than a tribal religion. You listen to the elder's words, and you realize you are hearing the tenets of a sophisticated continental philosophy. He speaks of the soul's journey. Reincarnation is not a vague belief, it is a codified certainty. The soul, they teach, is immortal, but it is not static. It passes from life to life, not just in human form, but through animals, plants, even stones, on a vast, cyclical journey of learning and purification. A wicked man might be reborn as a worm, condemned to a life of darkness and dirt, while a virtuous woman might return as an eagle, soaring closer to the heavens. This belief system has profound ethical implications. Your actions in this life are not judged by a distant God after death. They directly determine the quality and form of your next life. It is a deeply immanent form of cosmic justice. Cruelty to an animal is not just an unkindness, it is a potential injury to the soul of a departed ancestor. He speaks of the three realms. The world is not simply a flat plane created for humanity. It is an intersection of three interconnected realities. There is Abred, the circle of courses, the physical world of suffering and struggle where we now live. There is Gwynfyd, the circle of bliss, the spiritual realm or otherworld, a place of peace and perfection that is not a heaven in the sky, but exists parallel to our own, sometimes touching it at thin places like this very cliffside. And finally, there is Chugant, the circle of infinity, the unknowable expanse that contains only God, a universal, animating divine principle they call Dew, a force so vast and impersonal it is almost never named directly. This is not the personal, paternal God of Abraham. It is closer to the Tao, or Brahman, a divine essence woven into the fabric of existence. This brings you to the core of their science and religion, which are one and the same. The concept of co-essence. Nothing is separate. The tree, the stone, the man, the god, they are all expressions of a single, interwoven reality. To understand the stars, you must understand the patterns on a seashell. To heal a man's body, you must heal his spirit and his relationship with the land he walks upon. This is the great philosophical schism with the world we know. The Greco-Roman and Christian traditions are predicated on a fundamental dualism: man and nature, body and soul, sacred and profane. Here, that dualism does not exist. The grove is the temple. The body is the soul's temporary home, and the gods are present in the whisper of the wind and the turning of the seasons. The unexpected twist is the development of a kind of spiritual eugenics. Because the Druids are the sole arbiters of this complex cosmic system, they have become the gatekeepers of reincarnation itself. They perform the funerary rites that guide the soul correctly into the other world. A chieftain who rules justly, who is generous to the Druidic orders, is guaranteed a favourable passage and a noble rebirth. His bloodline is seen as spiritually strong. A clan that consistently produces wise druids and brave warriors is considered blessed, its lineage favoured by the gods. This creates a rigid, spiritually enforced caste system. At the top are the druids, the intellectuals, then the warriors, equites or chieftains, and at the bottom, the commoners, plebs, who work the land. Your birth is not an accident of fate. It is the direct result of your soul's progress in a previous life. Social mobility is a spiritual concept, not an economic one. The ethical tension here is subtle but profound. This worldview fosters a deep, profound respect for the natural world. The deforestation, pollution, and relentless exploitation of resources that defined our world's age of expansion are unthinkable here. To poison a river is to poison a god. To level a sacred forest is a blasphemy that would bring ruin upon your entire lineage for generations. This is a Europe that lives in harmony with its environment. But the cost of this harmony is a static social order. There is no concept of the self-made man. The idea of challenging your ordained place in the cosmos is not rebellion. It is insanity. It is a peaceful, stable, and deeply unfree society, where the harmony of the whole comes at the cost of individual aspiration. You are a leaf on the world tree, and your purpose is to serve the tree, not to grow into a different branch. You watch as a young initiate, having flawlessly recited a 1,000-line legal tract, is taken to a secluded chamber. There, a master druid begins the process of teaching him the secret Ogham script, an alphabet of straight lines, carved on wood or stone, used only for sacred records and divination. It is never to be used for common commerce or profane histories. Knowledge is power, And here, power is guarded by a jealous intellectual monopoly. The gods of the groves have triumphed, and their rule is one of mystery, memory, and an unyielding, cyclical order. Europe is not marching forward into the future. It is walking deeper into the heart of its own ancient past. The calendar may read 20 BCE, but time in Rome is measured differently now. You measure it in scars. You stand in the Forum Romanum, and the air you breathe is stale, tasting of dust, damp rot, and the lingering fear of a city that has been eating itself alive for 30 years. The marble is not the gleaming white of a global capital. It is grimy, cracked, and pockmarked from the street battles that have become a seasonal affliction. The rostra, where orators once moved the world, is now just a convenient platform for posting prescription lists. The Temple of Vesta is scorched black on one side, a wound from a fire set during the War of the Sicilian Grain 6 years ago. There is no grand ambition here, only the grim business of survival. This is the silent republic. It is silent because the great voices have been stilled. Cicero's tongue was not nailed to the rostra in a grand theatrical display of power by a triumvirate. It was cut out by a jittery mercenary captain who thought the old man was reaching for a weapon during a shakedown for wine money. Cato did not die a noble stoic suicide to defy a tyrant. He was trampled to death by a panicked mob fleeing a food riot. The Republic was not slain by one great man. It was bled out by 1,000 small cuts. You see him then, crossing the square. He moves with the heavy, ponderous gait of a man who has lived too hard and drunk too much. He is flanked by a dozen massive Cretan bodyguards, their hands never far from the hilts of their swords. You recognize him instantly, though he is a ruined version of the man from the histories, Marcus Antonius. Mark Antony. In our world, he was Caesar's right hand, the master of the horse, a man who would command the vast wealth of the East and shake the world in his war against Octavian. Here, he is none of those things. Without Caesar's patronage, without the river of Gallic gold to fund his ambitions, Antony is just another predator in a city full of them. He never went to Egypt. He never met Cleopatra. His world, his entire field of ambition, has shrunk to the borders of Italy. He is not a triumvir. He is a glorified gang boss, the current protector of the city, a title he holds because his legion of veterans, the cobbled-together remnants of men loyal to him, and not the state, is quartered just outside the walls. He stops to look at the Curia Hostilia, the Senate House. It still stands. The Senate still meets. This is the great bitter irony, the ethical tension at the heart of this dead Rome. The Optimates, the conservative faction that feared Caesar's monarchy, have won. The tyrant is dead. The Republic survives. But what is it? It is a hollow shell, a grotesque parody of its former self. Senators convene to debate not the administration of provinces or the declaration of war against Parthia, but the price of bread, and which faction will be awarded the contract for repairing the sewers. Their speeches are cautious, their allegiances shifting with every armed patrol that clatters past the doors. They are not senators, they are hostages. The death of Caesar at Alesia did not save the Republic. It doomed it to a slower, more pathetic form of extinction. The news of the disaster in Gaul shattered the city's confidence. The loss of 8 of its finest legions was a military catastrophe from which it never recovered. But the loss of the idea of Caesar was worse. He was the engine of Roman expansion. When he died, that engine seized. The civil wars that followed were not the epic struggles of our timeline. They were not fought for the soul of the world. They were squalid, brutal affairs, fought over the body of a dying Italy. Pompey the Great, returning from the East, did not face a single formidable opponent. He faced a dozen. He faced Labienus, who had limped back from Gaul with a few thousand vengeful, broken men. He faced rogue commanders who had declared their provinces independent. He faced Antony and the young, cunning but underfunded Octavian, Caesar's teenage heir, squabbling over their master's diminished legacy. Pompey's legions were exhausted, putting down one fire after another, until he himself was assassinated not in Egypt, but on the road to Brundisium, by one of his own centurions, who had been promised a better deal by a rival. This is the unexpected twist. Rome's ambition is dead. The city has turned inward, becoming pathologically obsessed with its own decay. The wider world has been forgotten. The provinces are no longer sources of tribute, they are memories. Hispania is ruled by a breakaway general who styles himself a king. Africa is controlled by a council of local cities that pay tribute only when a Roman fleet is strong enough to threaten their ports. Greece is a haven for pirates. The East? The East is its own world again, a place of Hellenistic kingdoms and rising powers that no longer look west with fear, but with contempt. The Gallic Concordat over the Alps is not a target for a future war of revenge. It is a source of terror. Roman mothers frighten their children with tales of the painted warriors and the white-robed priests who command the forests. Gallic mercenaries are prized by warlords like Antony for their ferocity, but they are never trusted. They are seen as alien, imbued with a dark magic that broke the divine Caesar. The Alps are not a border. They are the edge of the known world. Antony, his face florid and sweating, barks an order. A cart laden with wine barrels is being seized by his men. The merchant wails, protesting that he has already paid his protection tax to a different faction. Antony laughs. A harsh, ugly sound. This is the governance of Rome. Not law, but extortion. Not order, but the temporary supremacy of the strongest brute. The Republic has been silent for a generation. No grand histories are being written, for there are no grand deeds to record. No new aqueducts are being built, for there is no vision for a future that extends beyond the next grain shipment. The great Roman mind, which in our world gave us law, engineering and empire, is now consumed with paranoia and petty feuds. They have kept the form of the Republic, but they have murdered its soul. They avoided the tyranny of one man only to fall to the tyranny of 1,000. And as you watch Antony drain a wineskin his guards have looted, you understand the cold, hard truth. The Pax Romana will never be born. There will be no universal law, no common citizenship, no 2 centuries of stability that allowed new ideas and religions to cross the world. Rome is not the eternal city. It is a tomb, and its people are merely ghosts, haunting the ruins of a future that will never happen. You are not a warrior. You are not a priest. You are a man of accounts, of goods, of calculated risks. You are a merchant, and your world is defined by movement. Right now, you are moving very, very slowly. Your heavy, ox-drawn cart, its wooden wheels reinforced with iron bands, a specialty of the Aedui craftsman, sinks to its axles in the thick, unforgiving mud of the trackway. Rain is falling, a miserable, persistent drizzle that soaks through your woolen cloak and chills you to the bone. This path you follow is ancient, far older than the memory of Rome. It is a ridgeway, following the high ground to avoid the worst of the bogs. But it is no road. It is simply a way. Ahead, you see a crude wooden palisade and a watchtower, marking the border between the lands of the Senones and the Aedui. A pair of warriors, their long moustaches drooping in the rain, step out to block your path. They carry heavy iron-tipped spears and gaze at you with an air of bored authority. This is the 3rd toll you've had to pay since sunrise. You sigh, reaching for the small pouch of silver coins and the length of fine British tin you have learned to carry for exactly these occasions. One does not simply travel here. One negotiates a path through a patchwork quilt of tribal lands, each with its own customs, its own tolls, its own petty tyrants. This is the reality of the Whispering Roads. In the world that might have been, straight, paved highways would have sliced across this landscape, monuments to a central authority, allowing legions and commerce to move at an astonishing, unnatural speed. An army could march from Lutetia to Lugdunum in weeks. Here, such a journey by land would take months of grinding, uncertain travel. The legions are gone, and so is the logic that built their roads. Your bribe is accepted. The guards wave you on, and your oxen strain to pull the cart free. Your frustration, however, is tempered by a simple fact. This muddy track is not your true destination. It is merely a capillary, leading you to the great artery. An hour later, you hear it, a low, steady hum of activity. The trees thin, and you emerge onto a high bluff overlooking a river. Not just any river. This is the Saône, a broad, muscular waterway, the lifeblood of this entire region. And below you is the reason you endure the mud and the tolls. It's a river port, a chaotic, sprawling mess of docks, warehouses and coracles buzzing like water striders. Long, flat-bottomed barges, piled high with grain from the fertile lowlands, are being poled towards the far bank. Sleek, fast-moving leather carracks, their crews chanting rhythmically ferry high-value goods, amber from the distant north, fine pottery from the south, and ingots of smelted iron from the forges hidden in the deep forests. This is the true infrastructure of the Concordat. Not stone, but water. The Druidic administration, viewing the world as an interwoven, living entity, saw the rivers not as obstacles to be bridged, but as sacred pathways to be enhanced. Their great public works are not highways, but canals connecting river systems, dredged channels to allow for larger boats, and the reinforcement of riverbanks to create permanent ports. Power does not radiate from a central city. It flows along the river valleys. Your destination lies ahead, looming on the horizon, the great oppidum of Bibracte, crowning the high hill of Mont Beauvray. It is the capital of the Aedui, one of the wealthiest tribes in the Concordat. From here, it looks like a forested mountain, but as your cart joins the slow-moving procession of traders and pilgrims winding its way up the hill, you see the walls. Not the stone ramparts of a Roman city, but a colossal Murus Gallicus, a masterpiece of Celtic engineering, a 30-foot-high wall of earth and timber, laced together with thousands of iron nails. Inside, the city is a bewildering labyrinth of wooden houses, workshops, and temples. The air is thick with wood smoke, the clang of 100 blacksmiths' hammers, and the smells of cooking, livestock, and unwashed humanity. This is not a city of grand civic spaces and planned avenues. It is an organic growth, a bustling, vibrant, and utterly chaotic hub of Celtic life. It is the heart of a new kind of economy. Here, you see the unexpected twist of this world's development. You are here to negotiate a contract for 500 iron swords, and you do not go to a government official. You go to the Longhouse of the Rivermasters Guild. These are not Aedui nobles, but a cross-tribal clan of families who have controlled the Saône traffic for generations. They are boat builders, pilots and merchants, and their power is absolute. They decide who can ship goods, at what price, and when. Their authority is not based on law, but on a web of oaths, kinship, and carefully guarded knowledge of the river's currents, sandbars, and seasons. You sit with the guild master, a grim-faced man with tattooed hands. You share bread and salt. You do not speak of business at first. You speak of his son's recent marriage, of the omens read in a flight of birds that morning, of the quality of the recent barley harvest. This is an economy of relationships, When you finally speak of the swords, the price is not merely in silver. He wants a share of your profits, but he also wants your promise to carry a consignment of his own goods, fine Gallic glassware on your return journey, toll-free. And he wants information. What are the traders in the Rhone Valley saying about the Helvetii? Are they arming for a raid? Your contract is a tapestry of coin, favour, and intelligence. Herein lies the deep ethical tension of this world. The absence of a central Roman authority has created a kind of brutal economic libertarianism. As you share a cup of wine with another merchant in a crowded tavern that evening, you hear the source of his troubles. He trades in salt from the coastal marshes, a vital commodity, but his route has been choked off. An upstream tribe, the Sequani, in a dispute with their neighbours, have built a dam to divert water for their fields. The river level has dropped, making it impassable for his heavy barges. In the Roman world, he could have appealed to a provincial governor. An edict would have been issued. A cohort of legionaries might have been dispatched to enforce it. The dam would have been removed for the good of the imperial economy. Here, he has no such recourse. The Druids will only intervene if a sacred law has been broken. This is a matter of commerce. His options are to pay the Sequani a ruinous toll to release the water, to find a new, much longer route, or to pray that his own tribe, the Aedui, feel insulted enough by the Sequani's actions to threaten war. The Whispering Roads are not just the muddy tracks, they are the whispered threats and backroom deals that govern this fragmented landscape. The river network, for all its organic efficiency, creates a world of 1,000 choke points. It empowers local chieftains and guilds, but it prevents the emergence of a single, unified economic space. It fosters a rich diversity of local cultures, but it also breeds constant, low-level conflict. This world is connected, but not united. Its arteries pulse with the rhythm of trade, but they are fragile, easily blocked. The grand Roman vision of a single, ordered world, pacified and administered for the benefit of the centre, has been replaced by a chaotic, dynamic, and intensely local reality. Europe's destiny is not being written by a senate or an emperor. It is being negotiated, one boatload, one toll, one tribal feud at a time, on the whispering roads and the flowing waters of a continent that refused to be tamed. The sun, a pale disk in the overcast sky, filters through the high, unglazed windows of the workshop. The air within is a heady cocktail of smells: the sharp, metallic tang of cooling iron, the sweet aroma of boiling plants, and the earthy scent of clay. You are in a place of creation, a place of transformation. This is the workshop of a master craftsman in the oppidum of Avaricum, a man known simply as a Cygo, a title that means both seeker and maker. He is a man of science, but his laboratory looks like an alchemist's dream. He stands before a charcoal furnace, its bellows worked by 2 apprentices, their faces slick with sweat. The roar of the fire is a living thing. The Cygo is not a grimy labourer. He wears a fine, dyed green tunic, and his hands, though stained, move with the delicate precision of a surgeon. He is a member of a high-status guild, a man whose skills are as vital to the Concordat as any warrior's. He is not just forging a sword. He is coaxing the spirit of the iron from the ore, a process he considers as much a spiritual rite as a physical one. This is the forge of Celtic science. In our timeline, the Greco-Roman world laid the foundations of a mechanistic theoretical science, a world of axioms, proofs, and a detached observational method, a world that sought to understand the universe by breaking it down into its component parts. Here, that entire tradition is absent. Science has taken a different path, one that is holistic, empirical, and deeply interwoven with the Druidic worldview of coessence. You watch the Sago at work. He is not following a written formula. He is reading the fire, the colour of the flames, the sound of the crackling charcoal, the smell of the burning. These are his instruments. He adds a pinch of crushed bone to the crucible, a technique passed down through generations, a secret of his clan. He knows from experience that this will add carbon to the iron, making it stronger, more flexible. He does not know the chemical principle of carbonization, but he knows the result with an unshakable certainty. This is a science of doing, not of theorizing. The greatest triumphs of this world's science are in metallurgy. Without the mass-produced, relatively low-quality steel of the Roman gladius, Celtic smiths, catering to a warrior aristocracy that valued individual prowess, have perfected the art of pattern welding. They forge intricate blades by twisting and hammering together rods of hard and soft iron, creating swords of legendary strength and beauty, their surfaces rippling with hypnotic, watery patterns. This is high technology, but it is artisanal, not industrial. Each sword is a masterpiece, its creation a guarded secret. Next to the forge, another craftsman is at work in a different field, organic chemistry. Before him are vats of boiling liquids, each emitting a uniquely pungent odour. He is a master dyer, and the vibrant colours of the chieftain's cloaks, the deep crimsons, the brilliant blues, the sun-bright yellows are his creation. He uses lichens scraped from ancient stones to make purple, woad for blue and weld for yellow. He knows precisely which type of urine to use as a mordant to fix the dye, what time of year to harvest the plants for maximum potency, and how the phases of the moon affect the final shade. He is a chemist, a botanist, and a magician all in one. His knowledge is a vast, unwritten library of recipes and rituals. This is the core of this world's scientific method. Innovation happens, but it is slow, secretive, and clan-based. A smith might discover a new quenching technique that makes his blades hold an edge longer. He will not publish a paper. He will teach it to his son, and it will become his family's advantage, a source of wealth and prestige. This leads to an unexpected twist. A world of incredible technological peaks in certain crafts, alongside vast plateaus of stagnation. They can create steel that Roman smiths could only dream of, but they have no aqueducts. They can concoct herbal remedies of stunning effectiveness for specific ailments, knowledge gleaned from centuries of Druidic observation, but they have no concept of public sanitation or germ theory. The Druidic monopoly on high learning is the great governor on this engine of progress. The Druids are the astronomers, the physicians, the judges. They hold the accumulated knowledge of the people, but their core doctrine, the prescription against writing down the most sacred knowledge, acts as a fundamental brake on scientific acceleration. A brilliant idea cannot be disseminated widely. It can only be passed from teacher to student, orally, risking corruption or loss with each generation. There is no peer review, no building upon the published work of others. Science is a garden of walled-off plots, not an open field of inquiry. You see the ethical tension starkly when a man is brought into the workshop, his leg badly broken in a cart accident. A Druid physician is summoned. He does not consult a medical text. He enters a light trance, chanting to diagnose the nature of the spirit injury that accompanied the physical one. He prescribes a poultice of comfrey, what we would call knitbone, a demonstrably effective remedy to speed bone healing. But he also demands the sacrifice of a prize cockerel to appease the spirits of the road angered by the accident. The physical and the metaphysical are inseparable. When the man cries out in pain, the Druid gives him a drink, a willow bark tea. You know this contains salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. It is a powerful analgesic. But there is another option. The sago gestures to a shelf where a clay pot sits, filled with a dark, sticky substance. It is poppy resin, opium. They understand its power to kill pain, but it is rarely used. The Druids teach that pain is part of the soul's journey in the circle of Abred. To erase it completely is to cheat the soul of a necessary experience, potentially harming its path to a better rebirth. The highest priority is not the comfort of the individual, but the integrity of the cosmic order. This is a world that will never have a Newton, a Galileo, or a Descartes. The very idea of a purely mechanical universe governed by impersonal mathematical laws is a form of blasphemy. The universe is not a clockwork machine to be dismantled and understood. It is a living, breathing creature to be listened to and harmonized with. This path of science creates a society with a deep, intuitive understanding of its natural environment. It is sustainable. It is resilient, but it is also a world without the lever of abstract theory, a world where the search for knowledge is always subordinate to the preservation of sacred tradition. The iron is masterfully forged, the oak is deeply understood, but the stars remain the abode of the gods, not spheres of rock and gas waiting to be measured. The damp chill of Gaul is a memory. You have crossed the narrow sea, a rite of passage for all who seek the deepest knowledge. You are in Britannia, the Isle of Mists, the wellspring of the faith. The year is 10 CE. You are in the heart of the great oppidum of Camulodunon, the hill of Camulos, the war god. This is the seat of Cunobelinus, king of the Catuvalauni, the most powerful chieftain in the Southern Isles, a man whose influence ripples across the Concordat. You are here because this is the Sorbonne, the Oxford, the Alexandria of the Druidic world, but it has no libraries. Its knowledge is not stored on shelves, it is held in the minds of men. You sit on a rough-hewn bench in Cunobelinus's great hall. The room is vast, 100 feet long, the roof held up by massive oak pillars carved with swirling, hypnotic patterns. A great fire pit burns in the centre, its smoke rising to a hole in the thatched roof, filling the space with a hazy, dreamlike atmosphere. The air smells of wood smoke, roasting meat and spilled ale. Warriors, their arms adorned with gold torques, sit at long tables, their laughter and boasts echoing in the rafters. Cunobelinus himself sits on a raised throne, a bearskin cloak on his shoulders, his presence filling the hall. But tonight the king is not the centre of attention. All eyes are on the man who sits on a simple three-legged stool near the fire. He is old, his eyes clouded with blindness, but his hands, resting on a magnificent harp of yew wood and bronze, are steady. He is a bard of the highest order, a man whose lineage of teachers stretches back beyond memory. He is a living library. He is the law, the history, and the soul of the people made flesh. He strikes a chord on his harp. The sound, deep and resonant, cuts through the din of the hall. A hush falls. He begins to speak, his voice not loud, but carrying a rhythmic, incantatory power that commands attention. He is not just reciting, he is weaving a spell of words and music. He sings of the creation of the isles, of the giants who first walked the land. He sings of the coming of the tribes, tracing the lineage of Cunobelinus back 20 generations, to a hero who wrestled a sea serpent and won the favour of the gods. This is not entertainment. This is a political and spiritual act of the highest importance. In a world without written deeds or birth certificates, this public recitation is the proof of the king's legitimacy. The bard's memory is the ultimate source of truth. The epic poems he knows, some taking 12 hours to recite in full, are not stories. They are the Constitution. They contain the genealogies that determine land rights, the legal precedents that settle disputes, and the historical alliances that bind tribes together. The oral tradition has not just survived. It has become the bedrock of civilization. The Ogham script is for sacred markers and mystic secrets, not for the living, breathing word of the law. Writing is seen as a dead thing, a rigid prison for knowledge that should be fluid, alive, and performed. The bard's voice rises. his fingers dancing on the strings. He sings of a great battle fought 2 generations ago, where the grandfather of Cunobelinus led the Catuvellauni to victory over the rival Trinovantes, securing the lands on which Camulodunon now stands. It is a masterpiece of storytelling, full of heroic single combats, divine interventions, and glorious sacrifice. Then something happens that makes your blood run cold. A chieftain from the far side of the hall, a grim-faced man from a lesser allied clan, stands up. This is a grave breach of etiquette. The master bard sings with a golden tongue, the chieftain says, his voice heavy with meaning. But my grandfather's grandfather also fought in that battle, and in our family songs, it was he who held the ford against the Trinovantes' charge, not the noble ancestor of our great king. A deadly silence descends on the hall. This is not a historical correction. It is a challenge. The chieftain is not claiming his ancestor was forgotten. He is claiming the official history, the one that legitimizes Cunobelinus's rule over his clan's ancestral lands, is a lie. In your world, such a dispute might be settled by consulting chronicles, records, deeds. Here, there are none. There are only the songs, and the songs are in conflict. This is the unexpected, terrifying twist of a purely oral culture. History is not a fixed point of reference. It is a living, breathing narrative that is constantly being contested and renegotiated. The truth is not what happened. The truth is what the most powerful and credible voices agree to remember. Cunobelinus does not speak. He glances at the archdruid of the region, who sits at his right hand. The druid, a man whose authority is absolute in matters of tradition, rises slowly. He does not rule on the facts. That is impossible. Instead, he speaks of harmony. The conflicting songs create a spiritual dissonance, a tear in the fabric of the community. A new song must be woven, the druid proclaims, one that honors both noble bloodlines. The master bard will convene with the elders of both clans, and from their memories, a new, greater truth will be composed. A truth that restores the balance. You watch, stunned, as you realize what this means. They are going to edit the past, not by burning books, but by recomposing the poem. The new version will be a careful political compromise, perhaps giving the challenger's ancestor a heroic death at the ford, while Cunobelinus's ancestor rallies the warriors for the final decisive charge. It will be a more complex, politically useful, and less factually accurate version of events. Once it is composed and performed by the master bard, it will become the new, official history. The old version will be allowed to fade, to be forgotten. Within a generation, it will be as if it never existed. Here is the ethical tension, sharp as a shard of flint. This system creates an incredibly powerful sense of shared identity and cultural unity. Every person in the hall carries parts of these great poems in their heads. It is a culture that is deeply poetic, musical, and alive. But it is a world without objective truth. It is a world where history is a weapon, where justice is a performance, and where an inconvenient past can be literally sung out of existence. Your entire life, your rights, your status, depend on your place in a story that can be changed. As an aspiring bard, you are training to become a pillar of this system. You spend your days not in study, but in memorization, your mind stretched to its limits, learning tens of thousands of verses, the precise intonations for legal formulae, the complex rhythms of heroic epics. You are learning to be a hard drive of flesh and blood, but you are also learning that your duty is not to remember what was, but to shape what island. You are not a chronicler, you are an artist of reality, and the weight of that responsibility, the power to erase a man or elevate him with a verse, is a burden far heavier than any stone tablet. The world you know ends at the shoreline. For your entire life, The land has been a tapestry of greens and browns, a known world of tribes, trackways, and the eternal rhythm of the seasons. But the sea is different. It is a shifting, formless void, a place of monsters and madness. The bards sing of it as the Muirgeel, the white sea, close to shore, but further out, they call it the Muirdorcha, the dark sea. And beyond that, the green sea of darkness, where the sky meets the water, and the souls of the drowned wander forever. You are standing on a wind-blasted promontory in westernmost Hibernia, a place where the land gives up and crumbles into the roaring Atlantic. The year is now 65 CE. The air is so full of salt, you can taste it on your teeth. Below you, straining at its moorings in a sheltered cove, is a ship unlike any you have seen before. It is not a war galley or a merchant barge. It is a creature of the ocean. It is a currach moor, a great currach 60 feet long, its frame a skeleton of ash and willow, its skin a seamless coat of more than a dozen tanned ox hides, stitched together with leather cord, and waterproofed with a thick layer of sheep's tallow. It has a single mast, a single square sail of woven linen, and a long steering oar at the stern. It looks fragile, a leather bowl about to be tossed into chaos. But you know it is one of the most seaworthy vessels ever built, flexible enough to ride the great ocean swells that would break the back of a rigid Roman ship. You are Duin, a navigator. You are not a warrior, though you can handle a sword. You are not a druid, though you know the stars and the sacred verses that govern them. You are a man who can read the language of the waves and the whispers of the wind, and you are about to sail off the edge of the world. This expedition is not for gold or land or slaves. The Concordat has no interest in such things. This is a quest. Its leader is an ancient, visionary druid named Cathbad, a man who claims that in his dreams he has seen the sun-drenched shores of Tir na Nog, the land of the young. He believes the veil between the worlds has grown thin, that a physical path to the other world has opened. He has gathered a crew of 40 men, some are young warriors seeking glory, some are third sons with no inheritance, and some, like you, are simply drawn to the great, terrifying mystery of the horizon. Your motivation is not imperial, it is mythic. You are sailing into a legend. This is the great anchor of your culture, the belief that paradise is not a reward after death, but a physical place that a hero, a mystic, can find. The voyage of St. Brendan in our timeline was a Christian echo of this far older, more powerful pagan dream. Here, the dream is alive, and you are its instrument. For weeks, you see nothing but the shifting grey mountains of the sea. You navigate not by chart, for none exist, but by a deep, intuitive science. You follow the flight of the gannets, knowing they will lead you to feeding grounds. You watch the migrating whales, for their paths are ancient and true. At night, under a dome of stars so bright they seem to hum, Cathbad guides you not by the fixed pole star, but by the rising and setting of specific constellations, the skyboats of the gods. You taste the water, feeling for the subtle shifts in temperature that signal a new current. Fear is a constant companion. A great storm descends, and for 2 days you are tossed in a universe of spray and screaming wind. You work the bailing buckets, your muscles burning, your mind numb with terror, while Cathbad chants the verses that bind the winds, his voice a steady drone against the gale. The currach, impossibly, survives. It bends, it groans, but it does not break. You see creatures from your darkest nightmares. A whale as large as an island, a swarm of jellyfish that glow with an eerie, cold light in the deep. This is the ethical tension of your journey. You are driven by a faith so profound, it gives you the courage to face the abyss. But that same faith makes you blind to reality. Every strange cloud formation is an omen. Every dolphin that follows the boat is a messenger from the sea god Mannanan. You are not exploring a physical ocean. You are traveling through a living myth. And then it changes. After 30 days at sea, a crewman shouts, his voice cracking. He points to a log floating in the water, a branch of a tree you do not recognize, with birds perched upon it. Land birds. An impossible, electrifying hope surges through the crew. 2 days later, you smell it on the wind. Not the salt and rot of the ocean, but the rich, resinous scent of pine, the smell of damp earth. You see a low bank of fog on the horizon, and as the sun burns it away, you see it. Land. It is not what you expected. The song spoke of flowering plains and magical crystal castles. You see a rugged, forbidding coastline of dark rock and dense, silent forests of pine and fir, stretching away into an intimidating alien wilderness. You steer the currach into a calm, sandy bay and beach her. The crew leaps out, stumbling onto the shore, some falling to their knees to kiss the solid ground. And here is the unexpected twist. The moment your world shatters. As you scout the tree line, you see movement. Not the graceful, shimmering forms of the Aos Sea, the fairy folk you were promised. You see people. They are stocky, with skin the colour of copper, their black hair long and straight. They are clad in animal skins and carry stone-tipped spears. They watch you from the shadows of the forest, with a mixture of fear and curiosity. This is the other shore North America, and its inhabitants are not gods or spirits, they are men. The disappointment is a physical blow. The crew is silent, confused. Cathbad the Druid stands at the water's edge, his face a mask of disbelief. He has led his followers across the abyss to find the gates of paradise, and has found this, a cold, hard, real place, inhabited by mortals. The first encounter is one of profound mutual bewilderment. You hold up an empty hand. One of the native men steps forward and does the same. You do not share a language, a history, a single point of reference. They look at your pale skin, your woven clothes, your iron axe heads with awe and suspicion. You look at them, and your entire cosmological map is thrown into chaos. Where do these people fit in the cycles of reincarnation? Are they men who have lived such base lives that they have been reborn in this harsh, primitive land? Or are they something else entirely? Beings outside the circles of existence as you know them? Cathbad, his faith shaken to its core, has no answer. His quest has given him the means to cross the world, but it has given him no tools to understand what he has found. Your crew, which faced the fury of the ocean with courage, is now crippled by a crisis of faith. They came seeking the other world, and found only more of this one. They have sailed farther than any human in their history, and they have never been more lost. The year is 711 CE. You are not a Celt. You are a Berber, a warrior of the Imazigan, from the sun-scorched mountains of the Maghreb. Your skin is dark. Your faith is a fire in your belly, and your sword is sharp. You have just crossed the strait on a rickety transport ship, the Rock of Gibraltar now, Jabal Tariq, Tariq's mountain, named for your brilliant commander at your back. You are one of 12,000 soldiers, a servant of the Umayyad Caliph in Damascus, here to bring the light of the one true God to the idolaters of this cold, green land the Romans once called Hispania. You feel an unshakable confidence. Allah is with you. You have seen kingdoms fall before the might of the Caliphate. The Visigoths who supposedly rule this land are decadent Christians, schismatics who argue over the nature of their prophet. They will break, as all the others have broken. You look at the landscape before you, impossibly green, lush, and damp compared to your arid homeland, and you see a paradise, a garden promised to the faithful. Your first battle is not what you expect. You are marching through a misty river valley. There is no grand army drawn up in formation. Your commander Tariq expects to meet the Visigoth king, Roderick, on some open plain. Instead, the attack comes from the trees. First, the sound, a terrifying, inhuman bellow that echoes from the hills. A sound like the world groaning in agony. It is the Carnix, the great Celtic war horn, shaped like a boar's head. It is a sound designed to inspire primal terror, and you feel its cold fingers on your spine. Then they come. Not in disciplined ranks, but as a screaming, terrifying wave of men. They are huge, larger than any men you have ever seen. Their hair limed into stiff spikes. Their faces painted with swirling blue patterns. They wear little armor, preferring to trust in their brightly patterned shields and a terrifying, suicidal courage. They crash into your lines, their long, heavy swords cleaving through shields and helmets. The fighting is not the tactical affair of charges and volleys you are used to. It is a desperate, close-quarters brawl. You survive. Your discipline holds. Your tight shield wall withstands the initial shock, and your cavalry, deployed skillfully, harries their flanks. By noon, the battle is won. The ground is littered with the bodies of the painted warriors. But it is a hollow victory. There was no king to kill, no noble to capture and ransom. You simply slaughtered a tribe's war host. And as evening falls, you hear it again. Another Carnix, answering from a different hill farther north. You have not decapitated a snake. You have kicked an anthill. This is Iberia. 500 years after the fall of Rome left it to its own devices. The Visigoths never established a stable kingdom here. The peninsula reverted to its ancient masters, the Galaici, the Astures, the Cantabri, the Lusitani, the Celtiberians. They are not a kingdom. They are a mosaic of fierce, independent tribes, bound by a regional echo of the Gallic Concordat, a shared culture, a warrior's code, and the absolute spiritual authority of their Druid priests. 5 years later, you are no longer a boy on a holy adventure. You are a hardened veteran, the governor of a captured castro in the northern mountains, a hill fort you have renamed Qalat al-Gaima, the Fortress of the Mists. You are lord of all you survey, which is a league of rocky, unforgiving terrain in every direction. The Caliphate holds the south, the fertile, sun-drenched plains of what you now call Al-Andalus. Cordoba is a shining capital, a beacon of Islamic learning and art. But here, on the frontier, is the truth of this war. This is the unexpected twist. In our world, the Islamic conquest of Spain was swift and total, leaving only a small Christian pocket in the mountains. Here, the conquest is a bloody, festering stalemate. To conquer the Celtiberians, you would need to exterminate every man, woman, and child in every mountain valley. They do not fight for a king. They fight for their clan, their land, their ancestors' graves, their sacred groves. Taking a castro means nothing. The survivors melt into the hills, and the war continues. A war of raids, ambushes, and nightly terror. This is a true holy war, a clash between two irreconcilable realities. This is the Crescent versus the Trident, the stark, unifying moon of Islam against the primal, three-pronged symbol of a Celtic sea and earth deity. The ethical tension is absolute. Last week, your men captured a druid directing a raid. You brought him to the fortress. He was an old man, dressed in a simple brown robe, his face a roadmap of wrinkles. Your imam questioned him, seeking to understand the nature of his heresy. The conversation, translated by a captured goatherd, was a dialogue from two different universes. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is his prophet, your imam declared. Why do you worship trees and stones? The Druid looked at him not with fear, but with pity. The divine is in the stone, he replied calmly. The spirit of the world breathes in the oak. To say your God is separate from the world is to worship a ghost, an emptiness. We do not worship the tree. We honor the life within it, which is the same life that is within you, though you are too blind to see it. The Druid spoke of his soul's journey, how after death it might be reborn in a hawk or a stream. To your men, this was the gibbering of a madman, the deepest, most profound shirk. To worship creation instead of the Creator is the ultimate sin. They saw a devil worshipper, an idolater who must be brought to the light or extinguished. But you, from your years on this frontier, have heard the stories of your enemies. You know how they see you. You are the men who cut down the ancient yew tree, a tree they believed was the linchpin of their valley's spiritual health to build a watchtower. You are the men who pray 5 times a day to a faceless god in a distant desert, ignoring the sacred spirits of the very ground you stand on. They do not see you as men of God. They see you as a soulless blight, a people disconnected from the world, a tide of death that must be resisted to the last drop of blood. This is not a war for territory. It is a war of extermination, a spiritual cleansing from both sides. When your patrols are ambushed, the bodies are not just looted. They are often ritually mutilated in ways that, according to their beliefs, will trap and dishonor the soul for its next incarnation. In response, when you capture a village, the sacred grove at its heart, the Nemeton, is the first thing you burn. You are both locked in a spiral of sacred violence, each atrocity justified by the absolute righteousness of your own faith and the absolute damnation of your enemies. You stand on the battlements of your misty fortress, looking north into the unconquerable green mountains. You have not brought light to this land. You have brought a sword, and found a people who live and die by the sword. The Reconquista of our world was a long, political, and military struggle between rival monarchies. This conflict is different. It is a primal theological hatred, a war between the book and the blood, the city and the forest, the transcendent god of the desert, and the immanent gods of the earth. It will not end in 700 years. It will never end. It is now a permanent feature of this world, a bleeding wound that will poison both civilizations for all time. Far off, in the swirling mist, you hear it, the groan of a distant carnix, and you grip the hilt of your sword. 600 years. You are standing on ground that has felt the tread of Celtic boots for 600 years. But it is not Gaul, not Britannia, not Hibernia. You are in a place the locals call the land of the Lenape, at the mouth of a great river that flows into the cold Atlantic. Your people, the newcomers, call the river the Abhain Nua, the New River, and you call this settlement Dunton, the Fortress of the Waves. The year, by the reckoning of the Old World Druids, is somewhere near 715 CE. You are Donal, and your face is a map of this new world. From your father, a sea captain from the clan of Uí Nail, you have eyes the colour of a winter sea and hair, the reddish-brown of autumn bracken. From your mother, a woman of the Turtle clan, you have high cheekbones and skin that tans to a deep copper in the summer Sunday. Your name is Donal, but you have another name, a name used by your mother's people, Wapachwe, tomorrow's light. You live, breathe, and think in 2 languages, 2 worlds, 2 sets of gods, and you are not unique. This settlement is filled with people like you, a 3rd tribe born of the union of 2. The story of the first crossing in the time of Cathbad has become a great epic, the Tyne Bo Quayeng of this new continent. But his voyage did not open the floodgates. The Concordat in the Old World had no desire for empire. The voyages that followed were sporadic, undertaken by dreamers, exiles, and dissidents. They brought with them iron, sheep, and a worldview as hard and unyielding as the granite of their homeland. They did not find an empty land. They found a world teeming with nations, spirits, and its own ancient powers. The peoples of the eastern woodlands. They did not conquer them. How could they? The forests were too vast, the people too fierce, and the Celts too few. Instead, after a century of skirmishes, plagues, and mistrust, a strange, tangled coexistence emerged. The newcomers clung to the coasts and river mouths. The first peoples held the interior, and between them a constant, vital, and dangerous exchange began. You are standing now in the central clearing of Dunton. It is a place of profound confusion. On one side stands a small, windowless stone structure with an oak door, a shrine to Lu of the Long Arm. On the other side, a tall totem pole, intricately carved with the images of the turtle, wolf, and bear, reaches for the sky. The architecture of the town is a jarring blend of Celtic roundhouses, made of wattle and daub, and the long, elm-bark longhouses of the Lenape. This is not a world of conquest. It is a world of theological competition. And today, that competition has reached a fever pitch. There has been no rain for 40 days. The maize, a crop your father's people have learned to cultivate, is withering on its stalks. The river is low. Fear, a sharp and bitter taste, is in the air. This morning the Druids acted. Led by the elder Oran, a man who can trace his lineage back to the first ships, they performed the rite of Tyrannus. You watched them. It was a ceremony of immense, solemn power. They gathered at the stone shrine, chanting the ancient verses in Old Gallic, a language most now barely understand. They drew complex patterns on the ground with salted water brought from the ocean. They sacrificed 3 white sheep, their purest stock, and read the future in the patterns of their entrails. It was a ritual of order, of cosmic negotiation, an attempt to persuade a distant, powerful god to restore the natural cycle. It was science and faith, bound together. Nothing happened. The sky remained a merciless, hazy blue. Now, it is the turn of your mother's people. The shaman, a man named Chaitan, whose name means falcon, is preparing. His power is not in ancient books or memorized verses. It is in the drum, the dance, the vision. He and his followers have painted their bodies with clay, with the symbols of the thunder beings. He does not seek to persuade a god. He seeks to embody a spirit. The drumming begins. A single, hypnotic heartbeat that echoes the dry, cracking earth. Chaitan begins to dance. His movements, at first slow, then faster, more ecstatic. He is entering a trance, travelling to the spirit world to plead with, to challenge, the beings who hold the reign. This is not a negotiation. It is a raw, personal, and dangerous confrontation with the forces of nature. Here is the unexpected twist of this 600-year encounter. It has become a spiritual arms race. When the Celts first arrived, their iron was seen as a form of magic. An iron axe could fell a tree in 1/10 of the time of a stone one. An iron pot could sit directly in a fire. These were miracles. The first peoples traded mountains of furs and deep knowledge of the land for these magic tools. But the Druids' gods seemed distant, their rituals slow and often ineffective in this new land. Conversely, the Celtic newcomers were stunned by the shaman's power. They saw men who could, it seemed, speak to animals, find lost objects in visions, and heal with a knowledge of local plants that felt supernatural. Their connection to the spirits of this place, the Manitou of the river, the forest, the mountains, was undeniably potent. So began the competition. Whose magic was stronger? Whose gods were real? When a plague swept through a village, and it did, the old world diseases were a slow-burning fire that reshaped the demographics of the continent over centuries? Was it a failure of the Druids' healing charms, or the shaman's spirit dance? When the hunt was good, was it because of the offering left at the stone shrine, or the prayer whispered to the master of animals? This is the ethical tension you live with every day. The Celts did not come here for conquest. In many ways, they respect the First Peoples as fellow animists, not as soulless heathens to be converted or enslaved. But their presence is a poison nonetheless. The iron tools they trade have made intertribal warfare more lethal. The concept of hereditary power, so central to the Celtic clans, is eroding the more democratic, merit-based leadership of the native sachems. And the diseases, though they have not caused a single swift apocalypse, have created a lingering trauma, a sense of a world out of balance, a deep wound that never fully heals. Your people, the newcomers, brought a cargo of wonders and a plague of sorrows, and you can never separate the two. Chaiton lets out a wild cry, his dance reaching its climax. He collapses to the ground, exhausted, his body twitching. His acolytes rush to his side. Silence falls. The whole settlement, Celt, Lenape, and everyone in between, holds its breath, looking at the sky. A dark line appears on the western horizon. A collective gasp runs through the crowd. It is a cloud, then another. Within the hour, the sky has turned a bruised purple. A cool wind, smelling of ozone and wet earth, sweeps through the clearing. The first, fat drops of rain begin to fall. They hiss in the dust. Then, the heavens open. A torrential, life-giving downpour. A wild cheer erupts from both sides of the clearing. But as the rain plasters your hair to your scalp, you see the truth. This is not a victory for the falcon shaman over the druid. It is a victory for confusion. The druid's followers will claim that their ritual simply took longer to work, that Tyrannus answered in his own time. Chaiton's people will celebrate the immediate, undeniable power of his trance. Nothing has been settled. The competition will only deepen. You look at the world tree carved into the shrine's oak door, and the sunstone patterns on the shaman's drum. They are not opposites. They are beginning to bleed into one another. You have seen young Celtic warriors with native tattoos, and you have seen shamans use polished iron discs for scrying. A new faith is being born here, in the rain and the mud. A syncretic, chaotic, powerful fusion of two deep streams of animist belief. You, Donal Wapakwe, are its first true child. You do not have to choose between the druid and the shaman. You know, with a certainty that chills you, that you need them both. And you know that this new world they are accidentally creating together will be more vital and more violent than either of them could have ever imagined alone. The calendar of the old world would read somewhere around 1100 CE. You are in the heartland of the Concordat, in a great roundhouse in what we would call the Loire Valley. The air is thick with the smoke of a central fire, but this is not a king's hall. It is a court of law. A dispute over the ownership of a prize bull is being decided. There is no judge on a high bench, no jury of your peers. There is only a panel of 3 grey-haired druids, their faces impassive, and 2 groups of men standing before them. You are Sion, a young man from the clan of Dubnovalornus. Your father stands beside you, his jaw tight with anger. On the other side of the fire stands another man, Briac, and his kin. Briac claims the bull which wandered onto his land is his by right of salvage. Your father claims it is his, and he has the witnesses to prove it. But this case is not about a bull. It is about blood. It is about the fundamental, unbreakable law that governs this entire society, the loom of identity. In the world shaped by Rome and Christianity, the individual is the core unit. You are a citizen. You have rights. You have a soul to be saved. You are responsible for your own actions. Here, that entire concept is a dangerous fiction. You are not an individual. You are a single thread in a vast, ancient tapestry. You are your lineage. Your identity is not what you do, but who you are born from. The presiding druid speaks, his voice dry as dust. He does not ask for evidence about the bull. He asks your father a different question. Recite your lineage. Your father begins the ancient chant, a litany of names stretching back 9 generations. I am Ector, son of Don, son of Cathal, son of Finn. It is a sacred duty to know this, to be able to recite it perfectly. The druid listens, his eyes closed. This is your primary legal document, your pedigree. Then the druid turns to Bryac. Recite yours. Bryac does the same. When he is finished, the druid nods slowly. The blood of Bryac's clan and the blood of Ector's clan has been infused for 5 generations since the matter of the stolen bride. The fine was never paid in full. There is a disharmony. The bull is forgotten. The true issue is now on the table. This is not about property law. It is about restoring a balance that was broken a century ago. The entire weight of your ancestry presses down on you in this moment. You did not steal a bride. Your father did not. But your great-great-great-grandfather did. And in the eyes of this court, that sin is still present. It stains your bloodline. This is the ethical tension of this world. It is a society of absolute belonging. You are never alone. You are supported by a vast network of kin. Your tooth. If you are wronged, your entire clan is wronged, and they are honor-bound to seek restitution for you. If you are poor, they are obligated to feed you. There is a profound security in this, a safety net woven from blood and duty. But the price of this belonging is the absence of self. You cannot simply pack up and move to a new city to start a new life. Your life is here, defined by this land, these people, this history. Your triumphs are not your own. They bring honor to your lineage, and your failures are not your own. They bring shame upon generations, yet unborn. The concept of personal responsibility is meaningless. You are responsible for the actions of your ancestors, and your descendants will be responsible for yours. The unexpected twist is how this system, known as the fine system, has evolved into the engine of both justice and social control. Society is divided into concentric circles of relation. Your immediate family is the Gale fine. Your first cousins are the Dareblow fine. Your second cousins the Ear fine, and third cousins the In fine. The system extends outwards, a complex web of rights and obligations. If your father commits a crime and cannot pay the honor price, the fine is levied on his brothers. If they cannot pay, it falls to his cousins. The entire clan is on the hook. This creates a powerful internal policing mechanism. Elders of the clan watch the young hotheads with a hawk's eye, not out of moral concern, but because one foolish action could bankrupt the entire lineage. It is a society that runs not on laws, but on the fear of collective shame and collective punishment. The Druids confer. Their voices a low murmur. You are watching a world without prisons. What use is a prison when the crime is of the bloodline, not the man? Justice is not about punishment or rehabilitation. It is about restitution. It is economic and spiritual. An imbalance has been created, and it must be rebalanced. The presiding druid announces the judgment. The bull will be returned to your father. However, your clan, the clan of Dubnovalornus, must finally pay the outstanding honor price for the bride stolen 5 generations ago. The price is set. 30 milk, cows, and 3 ounces of British gold. A crippling sum. Furthermore, Your younger sister, Mara, is to be fostered to Briac's clan for a period of 7 years, to live in their household, to learn their ways, and to weave the two bloodlines back together with threads of familiarity and shared experience. Your father bows his head in acceptance. There is no appeal. The word of the Druids, interpreting the ancient traditions, is final. You feel a surge of rage, of injustice. You, your father, your sister, you are all being punished for a crime you did not commit, but you look around the hall, at the faces of your kinsmen, and you see not outrage, but a grim acceptance. This is the way of things. This is how the world is kept in balance. The harmony of the tooth is more important than the grievance of any single thread within it. You walk out of the roundhouse into the grey afternoon. You are not Sian, the young man. You are Sian of Dubnovalornus, a thread in a pattern, a name in a chant. Your identity is a cage of warmth and certainty, a prison of belonging. You are part of a loom that has been weaving for 1,000 years, and its intricate, beautiful, and terrifying pattern dictates your every move. The individual has been sacrificed on the altar of the collective, and in this world, no one even remembers that a sacrifice was made. The year is 1720 CE. You are in Lutetia, but this is not the Paris of your world. There is no Louvre, no Notre Dame, no grand boulevards cut by housemen. The city is a sprawling, organic metropolis of timber, thatch, and stone that follows the ancient curves of the Seine. It is the largest city in the Gallic Concordat, a vibrant, chaotic hub of trade and craft. And you, Talakan, are one of its finest minds. You stand in your workshop, the northern light falling softly across your work table. The room is filled with the scent of polished wood, brass filings, and the faint, sweet smell of lens-grinding pitch. You are a maker of instruments, not for war but for knowledge. Before you, on a stand of dark, bog-aged oak, is your masterpiece. It is an orrery, a mechanical model of the heavens. But it is a model of a heaven that Isaac Newton would not recognize. At its center is not the sun, but a sphere of milky, blue-green glass representing the earth, resting in the cupped hands of a silver figure representing the goddess Danu. Around it, on a complex series of interlocking brass rings, revolve the sun, the moon, and the 5 known planets, each represented by a polished gemstone. It is a work of breathtaking artistry, but it is more than art. It is a statement of reality. As ordained by the Druidic core, this is the model of Abred, the physical world, suspended within the greater, unseen spheres of the other world. Gwynfyd. Its movements are governed not by gravity, a concept that does not exist, but by the will of the celestial spirits whose names they bear. The gears and cogs you have so painstakingly cut do not model a physical law. They replicate a divine dance. And it is wrong. This is your secret torment. In the back of your workshop, under a heavy cloth, is another instrument, a crude spyglass, its lenses ground by you in secret, after hearing tales from a Hibernian sea captain of a lensmaker in the distant lands of Al-Andalus who had made a similar device. For a year, on clear nights, you have taken it to the roof and looked at the sky. You have seen things that have unravelled your soul. You have seen that the planet you call Lu is not a single point of light. It has 4 tiny moons of its own, dancing around it. You have seen that the planet you call Sucellus has a faint, strange ring. These observations are impossible. They do not fit the dance. They do not fit the model. They suggest that the earth is not the centre of all things. It is a thought so heretical, so fundamentally world-shattering, that it feels like a physical illness. In the world we know, this was the dawn of the Enlightenment, a time when reason was elevated to a god. It was built upon the foundations of the Renaissance, which had rediscovered the rationalist, humanist traditions of Greece and Rome. Thinkers like Descartes, Locke, and Voltaire used reason to challenge the authority of kings and churches, forging a new world based on individual rights, scientific inquiry, and the pursuit of progress. That never happened here. There was no Rome to rediscover. There was no church to rebel against in the name of reason. The intellectual evolution of Europe has been guided by the Druids. It is a world that privileges harmony over progress, tradition over discovery, and spiritual truth over physical fact. Unable to bear the cognitive dissonance alone, you have requested an audience at the core of Lutetia, the great college where the Druids of the region are trained. You bring your charts, your meticulous drawings of Loom and its tiny companions. You are granted an audience with the Arch-Druid, a man named Ivor, whose eyes seem to hold the wisdom of 1,000 years. You lay out your findings on a polished slate table in a quiet, circular chamber. You speak with a trembling voice, explaining what you have seen. You expect anger, accusations of blasphemy, perhaps the fate of Galileo. You get something far worse. Ivor listens patiently. He examines your drawings with a scholar's interest. He does not deny what you have seen. This is the unexpected twist. He accepts it. Your craft is exquisite to Lorcan, he says, his voice a calm, melodic whisper. Your eye is sharp. You have seen a shadow on the wall of the cave, and you have rendered it beautifully. You are confused. It is not a shadow, you insist. It is real. It means the model, the dance, is wrong. Ivor smiles. A sad, paternal expression. You mistake the nature of reality. He explains gently. You are a creature of Abred, the circle of courses. Your senses are tools of this realm, a realm of illusion, imperfection, and decay. The model in your workshop, he gestures vaguely, is not meant to be a precise map of the physical shadows. It is a representation of the true reality, the perfect, unchanging spiritual harmony that lies behind the illusion. The sacred verses tell us the earth is the center of the dance because it is the spiritual center of the human soul's journey. What you see with your glass is a physical anomaly, a trivial detail of the decaying world. It has no bearing on the deeper truth. He leans forward, his gaze intense. Your error, son of the seekers, is not in your observation. It is in your desire. You wish to elevate the flawed physical world to the level of the spiritual. You seek to find perfection in the realm of imperfection. This is a form of spiritual pride. It is a sickness of the soul. Go home, meditate on the cycles, contemplate the harmony of the triads. The answers you seek are not in the sky. They are within. You walk away from the core in a state of shock. He did not burn your charts. He rendered them irrelevant. He did not punish you. He pathologized your curiosity. This is the ethical tension of the unenlightened mind. This is a world without the existential anxiety of a cold, mechanical universe. People here feel a profound connection to the cosmos. Their lives have meaning, purpose, and a guaranteed place in the great cycle. The society is stable, harmonious, and beautiful in its own way. But the price of this comfort is the death of objective inquiry. The human mind's most powerful tool, the ability to question, to reason from evidence, to challenge orthodoxy, has been declared a spiritual disease. There is no public sphere. Ideas are not debated in coffeehouses and pamphlets. They are handed down from master to initiate. Art has not discovered perspective, because its goal is not to create a realistic illusion of the physical world, but to depict the symbolic truths of the spiritual one. It remains a magnificent, intricate art of spirals, knots, and stylized figures. Governance is not questioned on rational grounds. The chieftains rule because their bloodlines are spiritually potent, a fact recited by the bards and accepted as natural law. You return to your workshop. You look at your beautiful, perfect, wrong orrery. Then you look at the crude, truth-telling spyglass hidden under the cloth. You have been told that your search for truth is a symptom of a sick soul. And as you stand there, alone in a city of 1 million people, a city that has chosen harmony over truth, you are faced with a terrible choice: to accept the beautiful lie, or to embrace a terrifying truth that no one else will ever believe. You are the first truly modern man in a world that will never be modern, and you have never felt so alone. The year is a meaningless number. Time is measured in seasons, in harvests, in blood. You are standing in a field drenched in the golden light of a late summer afternoon. It is the festival of Loom, the celebration of the harvest. The air is warm and smells of ripe wheat and cut grass. The people of the village, your people, are gathered in their finest clothes. There is music, laughter, and the sense of a community breathing a collective sigh of relief. The grain is in. The winter will not be hungry. It is a scene of idyllic peace. But you are not looking at the dancers. You are looking at the center of the field, where a new structure has been built. It is a man, a giant of a man, 12 feet tall, his body woven from wicker, and his arms outstretched as if in welcome. Inside its hollow chest, you can see them. 3 figures: a man, a woman, and a boy barely old enough to have a beard. They are not struggling. They are still, their faces eerily calm. They have been fed a drink of poppy resin and sacred mushrooms, a draught to open their minds to the other world they are about to enter. You are not horrified. You are not outraged. You are simply present. This is the way. This is necessary. The harvest was good, yes, but the river flooded in the spring, washing away 3 cottages. A strange sickness took the cattle in the next valley. The omens read by the Druid at the solstice were ambiguous. A debt has been incurred to the land, to the spirits. The harmony is frayed. A price must be paid. A gift must be given. This is the smoke of the Wicker Man. In our world, the Abrahamic religions brought with them the concept of a singular, universal morality. Thou shalt not kill. All human life is sacred in the eyes of one God. This principle, however imperfectly applied, became the ethical bedrock of Western civilization. It led to the abolition of human sacrifice, the development of universal human rights, and the condemnation of ritual violence. This world never had that revolution. It has avoided the unique horrors of our own history. There has been no inquisition, no mass burnings of heretics in the name of doctrinal purity. There has been no street Bartholomew's Day massacre, no 30 Years' War, no Holocaust. The idea of killing millions of people over a disagreement about the nature of God is incomprehensible in this worldview. Theirs is a polytheistic, syncretic faith that easily absorbs new gods and local spirits. It is a world without the sin of genocide. But this is the ethical trade-off. Laid bare in the afternoon Sunday, it has traded the hot-blooded horror of religious war for the cold, accepted reality of ritual murder. The 3 people in the wicker cage are not innocent victims in your eyes. They are criminals. The man was caught trying to alter the carved boundary stone between his land and his neighbours, a sacrilege of the highest order, an offence against the very structure of the Tuath. The woman was an adulteress, whose actions threatened the integrity of 2 bloodlines, creating a dissonance that could echo for generations. The boy, her son from this illicit union, is a paradox, a human being with no legitimate place in the loom of identity, his very existence, a knot in the thread of the community. They were judged by the Druids. Their crimes were deemed to have created a profound spiritual imbalance. Their deaths are not a punishment. They are a recalibration, a life for a life, a soul to mend the tear in the world. Their sacrifice is a gift to the gods of the soil, an offering to ensure the continued fertility of the land and the health of the tribe. This is the unexpected twist. This practice is not the work of some fringe, bloodthirsty cult. It is the logical, judicial, and spiritual endpoint of the dominant philosophy. In a world where the collective is everything and the individual is nothing, the removal of a disharmonious element for the good of the whole is not murder. It is civic duty. It is medicine. It is a form of sanitation for the soul of the community. The archdruid of the region steps forward. He raises a burning torch. The crowd falls silent. He chants a verse from the creation epics, a passage about the primordial giant from whose body the world was made. He is not condemning these souls to hell. He is elevating them. They are not dying. They are being transformed. Their physical bodies will be consumed by the fire, their spirits released as a powerful offering directly into the otherworld, where their spiritual debt will be paid, and their souls can begin the cycle of reincarnation anew, cleansed of their earthly taint. He touches the torch to the dry wicker. It ignites with a hungry roar. The heat washes over your face. The crowd murmurs, a sound like the wind in the trees. You do not watch the figures inside. That would be disrespectful. You watch the smoke. You watch it rise in a thick, grey-white column into the clear blue sky, a pillar connecting this world, a bread with the next. You feel the deep, communal catharsis. The tension of the past year, the fear, the imbalance is being burned away. The world feels cleaner, more stable. This is a world that would look at our history of warfare, of pogroms, of ideological mass murder with uncomprehending disgust. You killed millions for an idea? A druid might ask. For a disagreement over a book? We kill 3 once a year to ensure the corn grows and the children are healthy. Which of us is the savage? The question hangs in the smoky air, a profound ethical paradox. This society is, in its own way, peaceful. Endemic tribal warfare still exists, but it is a contained, ritualized affair of champions and cattle raids, not the total war of nations. Daily life is governed by a deep sense of order and security, but the foundation of this peace is an absolute ruthlessness towards those who threaten its harmony. There is no concept of mercy for the outcast, no redemption for the taboo breaker. There is only the cold, clear logic of the sacrificial knife and the cleansing fire. The Wicker Man is now a raging inferno, a roaring silhouette against the setting Sunday. The screams, if there were any, are lost in the crackle of the flames. The people are beginning to drift back towards the village, their faces serene. The debt is paid. The balance is restored. You turn to go with them, the smell of the sacred smoke clinging to your clothes, leaving you with a sense of profound and terrible peace. You are standing on the eastern bank of the Rhine, and the world changes. The year is 1815 CE. To the west, behind you, lies the Gallic Concordat, a world of ancient oppida grown into sprawling cities, of powerful river guilds, and the quiet, unyielding authority of the Druidic orders. It is a world of deep roots, of tradition, of a culture that has been turning inward, perfecting itself for almost 2 millennia. But here, on this side of the river, there are no roots. There is only churn. This is the Germanium March. It is not a nation. It is a storm front. For as long as the Concordat has existed, this has been the frontier. Not a border, drawn on a map and defended by forts, but a vast, violent, and fluid zone of conflict. To the people of Gaul, this is the land of the Teutones, the wild men, a place of dark forests and endless strife. It is a cultural concept more than a geographical one. You are Gunther, a chieftain of the Cherushi tribe. Your hair is blonde, your eyes are blue, and your worldview has been forged in the crucible of this endless war. Your great hall is not the intricate, artful structure of a Gallic chieftain. It is a fortress, built of rough-hewn logs, its palisade walls studded with the skulls of your enemies. Your wealth is not in land or trade contracts. It is in cattle, in weapons, and in the loyalty of the 100 warriors who feast at your table tonight, their faces illuminated by the firelight. In our history, these Germanic tribes were the barbarians who hammered on the gates of a dying Roman Empire. They eventually broke through, inheriting the husk of a superior civilization. They were awed by Roman roads, Roman law, Roman cities. They converted to Rome's religion. They sought to emulate Rome, to become its successor. That never happened here. There was no Rome to admire. There was only the Concordat, and the Germanic peoples do not admire it. They despise it. They see the Celts not as a superior civilization, but as an ancient, decadent, and alien enemy. They see the Druids not as wise priests, but as sorcerers who practice dark magic. They see the Gallic merchants with their soft clothes and complicated contracts as weak and effeminate. Your culture has been defined in opposition to the Celtic world for 1,000 years. You are a worshipper of Wotan, the one-eyed wanderer, the god of fury, poetry, and war. You value courage above all else. You believe your destiny is to die in battle and feast in his hall Valhalla until the final battle of Ragnarok. It is a faith of striving, of conflict, of forward-moving, explosive energy. It is the antithesis of the cyclical, harmonious, earthbound faith of the Druids. Where they seek balance, you seek glory. And now, something new is happening. Something that will shatter the long stalemate. A man has come to your hall. He is not a warrior. He is a smith, but a smith of a new kind. His name is Brand, and he has travelled from the south, from the lands near the Alps where the mountains are rich in ore. He brings with him a device. It is an engine, a thing of iron and fire. He has seen the water wheels and windmills of the Concordat, but he has taken the principle and given it a terrible new heart. He has learned to harness the power of steam. This is the unexpected twist. The Industrial Revolution, which in our world was born in the peaceful, mercantile workshops of England, is born here, in the forges of a war-torn frontier. Its purpose is not to make textiles cheaper. Its purpose is to make war. Brand unrolls a schematic, a drawing on stiff, tanned leather. It is a design for a new kind of weapon, a landship. A massive, iron-plated wagon, driven by a steam engine, capable of moving without horses, impervious to arrows and spears. He speaks of cannons that can be mounted on it, of steam-powered trip hammers that can forge swords 100 times faster than any man. This is not a gradual technological shift. It is a lightning strike. The Celtic world, with its artisanal, high craft, but slow and secretive guilds, is utterly unprepared for it. Their science of wood and water and organic chemistry is profound. But it has no answer for this. This is the science of fire, iron, and brute force. The chieftains in your hall listen, their eyes wide. They are men of the sword, men of tradition. But they are also pragmatic. They have spent centuries fighting a losing battle of attrition against the wealthier, more populous Concordat. They have always been the raiders, the predators. They have never been able to take and hold the great Celtic oppida. This could change everything. Here is the ethical tension. You are on the cusp of unleashing a power that will shatter this world. The steam engine, in the hands of your people, will not lead to mass production, to cities of workers, to a rising middle class. It will lead to mass destruction. It will be used to create weapons of unprecedented horror, to finally break the ancient enemy and burn the sacred groves that have stood for millennia. You see the future in Bran's frantic, brilliant eyes. A future of rivers running black with coal slurry, of skies choked with smoke, of forests clear-cut to feed the furnaces. You are about to trade your soul, your connection to the wild, dark forests your people have always called home, for the power to win. You are about to become a monster to defeat a sorcerer. As you look around your hall, you see the divide. The older warriors look at Brand with suspicion. They mutter that this is dwarfcraft, unnatural, dishonourable. To kill a man with a machine from a distance, where is the glory in that? War is about the strength of a man's arm, the courage in his heart. But the younger warriors, the ones who have seen their brothers fall in futile assaults on the Murus Gallicus of some Gallic town, lean forward. Their eyes gleam. They see a tool, a key, a way to finally, decisively win the war that has defined their entire existence. You, Gunther, must decide. Do you hold to the old ways, the warrior's code, and condemn your people to another 1,000 years as the perpetual barbarians on the frontier? Or do you embrace this new dark power? Do you become the chieftain who leads your people not just on another raid, but on a crusade of fire and iron that will redraw the map of Europe forever? You look at Brand's schematics, at the strange, beautiful, terrifying geometry of the gears and pistons. It is the gospel of a new and terrible God. And you know, with a cold certainty that settles deep in your bones, that you will build it. The age of myth is over. The age of the machine has begun, and it will be born in blood and fire. Here on the Germanium March, the year is 1914. You are standing on a hill overlooking a river valley, in the heart of what was once Gaul. The air is clean. It carries the scent of pine from the managed forests on the hillsides, and the faint, sweet smell of fermenting apples from the cideries in the town below. The town itself is a beautiful, chaotic jumble of timber-framed houses, their gardens overflowing with flowers, nestled around a great central nemeton, a grove of ancient oaks that has been the soul of this community for 2,000 years. The river, broad and clear, turns a dozen massive water wheels. Their rhythmic, groaning, turn the gentle heartbeat of the town. This is the age of wood and water. The world you inhabit is both ancient and advanced, a paradox of technological development. The great iron cataclysm, prophesied by the Germanic smiths, never quite happened as they planned. Their steam-powered war machines, clumsy and prone to breakdown, won them a century of bloody victories. They pushed across the Rhine, burning towns and groves, a tide of fire and soot. But they could not sustain it. Their engines required a constant, ravenous diet of wood and coal, leaving a blasted, clear-cut wasteland in their wake. Their advance literally ran out of fuel. The Concordat, shocked out of its long complacency, responded not by copying the Germanic machines, but by perfecting its own science. The Druidic cause poured their vast intellectual resources into the study of water power, wind power, and organic engineering. They did not have an industrial revolution. They had an industrial unfolding. You are a master artisan, a member of the Wood Shapers Guild. Your workshop is powered by a leather belt running from a shared drive shaft turned by the town's largest water wheel. You have lathes, saws, and drills that can work wood with incredible precision. You are not a factory worker. You are a craftsman, creating bespoke furniture of breathtaking beauty and durability for a wealthy clientele. This is the unexpected twist of this timeline. The world avoided the dark, satanic mills of our 19th century. There are no sprawling, polluted cities like Manchester or London. There is no vast, alienated urban proletariat. People live in smaller, more sustainable communities, their lives governed by the seasons and the flow of the river. Life is slower, quieter, more connected to the natural world. You walk through the town. you see the signs of a highly advanced society. The Rivermasters Guild uses elegant, streamlined barges to ship goods with incredible efficiency. The Dyers Guild has perfected hundreds of brilliant, permanent colours from plant and insect sources. The Healers Guild, which is to say the Druids, uses complex herbal remedies and a sophisticated understanding of diet and mental well-being to treat illness. There is no mass production. Everything is made to last, to be beautiful, to be repaired. It is a high-craft, low-impact world. Planned obsolescence is not just a foreign concept. It is a form of spiritual insanity. Why would you create something that is meant to break? This society is powered by sustainable energy. The forests are not wild, primeval places. They are vast, carefully managed tree farms, cultivated on a cycle of centuries. Oak is grown for building, ash for tools, yew for longbows, and willow for weaving. Every part of the tree is used. It is a masterful, practical application of the Druidic principle of harmony with the land. They have achieved a form of ecological balance that our world only dreams of. But as you reach the centre of town, you see the ethical tension of this wooden utopia. A young man is tied to a post in the middle of the market square. His head is shaved, and a wooden sign hangs around his neck, carved with Ogham letters that spell out the word rootless. He is not a criminal in the sense that he has stolen or killed. His crime is far worse. He has refused his tuath. He was born into the Weaver's clan, but he had no talent for the loom. He dreamed of being a boat builder, but the Boat Builders Guild is a closed shop. Its secrets passed from father to son. So, he left. He tried to make a life for himself as an independent labourer, taking odd jobs belonging to no one. In this society, that is not a sign of admirable independence. It is a sign of social disease. He is a broken thread in the tapestry, a rogue cell in the body politic. He has no clan to speak for him, no lineage to ground him. He is a non-person. His punishment is to be publicly shamed, then exiled, cast out into the wilderness between the tribal lands to survive as best he can. This peaceful, sustainable world is built on a foundation of absolute social rigidity. The guilds, the clans, the tripartite division of society into druids, warriors, and workers. These structures are as solid and unyielding as the ancient oaks in the grove. There is no social mobility. You are what you were born to be. The harmony of the whole is preserved by sacrificing the ambition of the individual. This is a world without a pursuit of happiness. There is only the pursuit of your ordained function. You look at the rootless man, and you feel a flicker of pity, quickly suppressed. The system works. The town is prosperous. The river is clean. The people are healthy. This is the price. Further on you pass the lodge of the warriors' clan. These are the descendants of the ancient Equites, the noble knights. They are still the defenders of the tribe, but their enemy is no longer the Germanic berserker. Their enemy is an idea, a dangerous, seductive idea that drifts across the sea from the lands of the Crescent. In Al-Andalus and the prosperous Islamic states of the southern coast, a different world has evolved. A world of universities, of mathematics, of merchants who value profit above lineage. The warriors are here to police not just the borders, but the minds of their people, to guard against the corruption of foreign thought. This world of 1914 is quiet. It is stable. It is beautiful. It is also stagnant. It has achieved a perfect, sustainable balance, and it has locked itself into it. The engine of creative destruction that powered our world's explosive and destructive growth has been dismantled. This society is like a magnificent ancient tree. It is strong, its roots are deep, and it is perfectly adapted to its environment. But it is not growing, it is simply enduring. It has traded the chaotic, terrifying, brilliant promise of the future for the serene, beautiful, and suffocating certainty of the past. The age of wood and water is a paradise, but it is a paradise with no escape. You are standing in a place that does not exist. It is not a place on a map, but a vantage point in time. The year is 2024. From here, you can see the world as it is. A tapestry woven from the threads of this alternate history. It is a world without a West. A world that never knew Rome, never knelt before Christ, never bled for the nation-state. It is a patchwork planet, a mosaic of deep-rooted, ancient cultures that have evolved in parallel, not in sequence. You look at Europe. It is not a union of states. It is a continent-wide version of the Gallic Concordat, a loose affiliation of linguistic and cultural blocks. There is the Celtic bloc, stretching from Hibernia to the Alps, a society of sustainable craft, clan identity, and druidic spiritual governance. To its east lies the Germanium Compact, a league of muscular, industrialized tribal kingdoms, their skies still hazy with the smoke of coal, their culture defined by a restless, aggressive energy, locked in a permanent Cold War with their ancient Celtic rivals. To the south, across the Pyrenees, is Al-Andalus, the crown of the Islamic world, a beacon of science, art and commerce that looks not north into the barbarian gloom but east and south, towards the great centres of Cairo, Baghdad and beyond. There is no Italy, only a squabbling collection of city-states. There is no England, only a patchwork of Brittonic Celtic chiefdoms. This is the echo in the stones. The ancient, pre-Roman identities of Europe never died, they solidified. The deepest political fault lines are not modern borders drawn by treaties. They are the invisible lines of ancient bloodlines, of languages whose roots are thousands of years old. The great conflicts of this world are not between nations fighting for resources, but between cultural blocs fighting for spiritual dominance. You look across the Atlantic. The continent of Avalon, as the Celts call it, is not the United States, not Canada, not Mexico. The eastern coast is home to the syncretic nations, a string of unique cultures born from the 600-year fusion of Celtic and First Peoples beliefs. They are a swirl of druidic ceremony and shamanic vision, of iron tools and deep ecological knowledge. Further west, the great empires of the sun, stone, the Aztecs and their rivals were never shattered by conquistadors. They encountered the trickle of Celtic mariners not as gods, but as strange, pale traders from the east. Their civilizations have continued to evolve on their own terms. A world of stunning astronomical knowledge, vibrant, bloody religion, and sprawling, magnificent cities that rival any in the old world. This is a world without colonialism. The concept of a mother country, conquering and assimilating a vast overseas empire, never took root. The Gallic Concordat had no imperial ambition. The Germanic Compact was too busy with its European wars. The Islamic caliphates expanded, but their model was one of conversion and administration, not the wholesale replacement of populations that defined European colonialism in our world. This has created a world of incredible cultural diversity. Thousands of languages, religions, and ways of life have survived and thrived, protected from the steamroller of westernization. This is the great, unexpected twist. In some ways, this world is more just. It has avoided the brutal sins of the slave trade, the genocide of indigenous peoples, the arrogant imposition of one culture on an entire planet. But this justice comes at a cost. You see the ethical tension clearly. This world has no concept of universal human rights. Rights are not human. Rights belong to the clan, the tribe, the faith. A man in the Germanium Compact has the right to die gloriously in battle. A woman in the Concordat has the right to the protection of her lineage. An unbeliever in Al-Andalus has the right to pay the jizya tax for protection. But the idea that a person, simply by virtue of being human, has an inalienable right to life, liberty, and self-determination, that is a phantom language no one speaks. Without the universalizing logic of Roman law and Christian morality, humanity remains fractured into 1,000 competing, incommensurable definitions of the good. There is no United Nations. There is no Geneva Convention. When a syncretic nation on the Avalon coast goes to war with a Sunstone Empire over a disputed hunting ground, there is no higher authority to appeal to. There is only the brutal logic of war. When a plague and plagues are still terrifying, localized events, without a global medical infrastructure to combat them, sweeps through the crowded cities of the Nile. The rest of the world sees it not as a shared crisis, but as the judgment of some foreign god on a foreign people. Science is local. The Germanium compact has perfected the steam engine and rudimentary electricity, but their physics is a crude, brutalist affair. Al-Andalus leads the world in mathematics and astronomy. The Concordat are masters of organic chemistry and genetics, breeding magnificent crops and livestock. The Sunstone empires have a command of hydraulic engineering and agronomy that seems miraculous, but this knowledge is never shared. It is a tribal secret, a weapon, a source of power. There is no global scientific community. The human mind is a garden of walled-off plots, and humanity as a whole is less than the sum of its brilliant, isolated parts. You are living in a world of echoes, a world where the ancient stones of Karnak and Stonehenge do not whisper of a lost past, but shout of a living present. It is a world that is more diverse, more colourful, more spiritually vibrant, and in some ways more sustainable than our own. It has avoided our worst sins, but it has also missed out on our greatest, most fragile achievements. It is a world of deep belonging, but no freedom. A world of 1,000 truths, but no objective truth. A world of 1,000,000 gods, but no shared humanity. The final, chilling realization settles upon you. The deepest identity of this planet is not progress, not liberty, not science. It is the tribe. Humanity never outgrew its oldest, most powerful, and most dangerous idea. And as you gaze upon this beautiful, fractured, stagnant, and magnificent world, you understand that the victory of Vercingetorix at Alesia did not just save Gaul from Rome, it saved the world from us. And it doomed the world to itself. So we step back. The hum of the fan returns to the foreground. The glow of the screen pulls you back into your own room. The world of the Druid Empire fades, leaving behind an echo, a question. What was truly lost, and what was gained? This alternate timeline traded the universal for the particular. It sacrificed the grand, unifying, and often brutalizing projects of our history for the preservation of 1,000 local realities. There was no Roman Empire, so there was no Roman law to become the bedrock of a continent. There was no Catholic Church, so there was no single moral framework, no shared spiritual authority that, for all its sins, saw humanity as a single flock. There was no Enlightenment, so there was no dangerous, brilliant idea of universal human rights, no scientific method to unlock the secrets of the cosmos for all. The cost was immense. Our world's history is a story of relentless, violent consolidation, of languages, cultures, and gods crushed under the wheels of empire and ideology. The world of the Concordat is a world that avoided that homogenization. It is richer in culture, more diverse in belief, and lives in a harmony with the natural world that we can only envy. It is a world that never knew the unique horrors of colonialism, the slave trade, or ideologically driven genocide. It is a quieter, more colourful, and perhaps more soulful planet. But look at the price they paid for that soulfulness. Theirs is a world without the individual. A world where identity is a cage, however comfortable. It is a world without the concept of objective, verifiable truth, where history is a story to be manipulated, and science a secret to be guarded. It is a world without the moral architecture to condemn a ritual sacrifice, or to dream of a day when all men, not just the men of one's own tribe, might be considered brothers. Which is the better world? The question itself is a product of our timeline, a way of thinking that a Druid, a Germanic chieftain, or an Andalusian scholar would find incomprehensible. They would not ask which is better. They would ask which is ours. Our history gave us the tools for self-critique, for progress, for the dream of a shared global community, tools we have used to both build and to destroy on a scale they could never imagine. Theirs gave them stability, belonging, and a deep connection to their small corner of the world. We live with the consequences of Caesar's victory. They live with the consequences of his defeat. Both worlds are haunted, both are beautiful, and both are deeply, unforgivably flawed. History is not a morality play. It is a series of trades, and the price is always paid.